This is At the Extremes.
Beloveds, welcome back to At the Extremes, the podcast where we discuss the extremes in our society and how we got here. As always, we are your hosts. I'm Greg.
And I'm Serge.
And today, we are going to continuing our Black History Month series, where we'll be discussing the LA uprising. And before we get into our main story for today, Sergio, hit me with that silver lining, baby boo.
Man, I don't even know how to respond to that.
Again,
that's amazing. So silver lining for today, it was nice to have a virtual school day to get kind of that experience. But one of the things that struck me about it, I was talking with some neighbor friends, and they just reminded me that when you work from home, you walk a lot less, or you walk around a lot less than at school. And so I was definitely looking at my watch today. I was like, wow, I definitely haven't been anywhere near any of my goals. And I was just like, all right, well, thankful that, I like to have the virtual day, and it's nice to be able to do stuff at home. But it also makes me appreciate that when I'm at work, I'm up and active and, walking around at least, and trying to get up to, a couple miles walking every day.
How often do you, how many steps are you getting in when you're at work?
I don't know, man. It from anywhere from 10,000 to 12,000.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like 3 miles or something like that. But I walk up and down stairs and go to different classrooms.
Yeah, that's really impressive. My step count goal every single day is 10,500. That's like the minimum count for me. I normally hit that and eclipse it by about 500, 600 steps. But I have to purposefully, when I'm working from home, have to get up, make it an intentional thing. I got to get out. I got to walk outside, because I can sit at my desk and do nothing for hour. Not nothing, but I can sit there and work for hours and not move. So hats off to you. Now, you were saying it's a virtual day. You guys don't normally get those.
No, but we exceeded the amount of snow days for the school year. So anytime that we have any inclement weather, we will be doing virtual school. And so, kind of gave flashbacks almost a little bit during the time of the pandemic and jumping into classrooms like that. So it's kind of a weird. I guess we did some virtual days. Did we do virtual? I can't remember if we did them last year, but no. It just reminded me of the COVID era and just jumping into classrooms and stuff like that.
And remind me, how long have you been back in a school setting?
Ooh, well, when did the pandemic was over? Or not over, but was it?
We decided it was over.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, because it was really weird. When we went back, it was only kids that had IEPs and special education, so there was maybe 200 kids in the whole school.
Oh wow!
And usually we're a lot there, 200 to 400 kids. And usually there's a lot of activity of kids not going to class, and not a lot, but there's a group of students that don't do it and walk around a lot. But it was just eerily silent. Everything was just so quiet. It was good and bad, because kids were where they needed to be, but it was also a fucking pandemic. So
yeah, it's like The Walking Dead almost when it's like that. You're like, I know there are bodies in the building, I just don't know where they are because it's so goddamn quiet.
Yeah, and it was strange, just where people would start to wear their masks and then take them off, and then some people would be really didn't give a shit about the mask, and other people would be really weary, and there were some strong discussions between coworkers at times. So.
Sure. Well, that's awesome. I guess I wanted to maybe do something a little different this week, and not do a silver lining, but more of a celebration of life, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So I don't know how much you've heard. I don't think I shared this with you over the weekend, but my parents' dog passed away over the weekend.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, really tough.
It's hard.
Yeah, she was an incredible dog, and truly one of the more well-behaved, most trainable dogs I've ever come across. She was my dad's baby, even though he didn't want her to start. Oreo filled his heart with more love and more focused attention than maybe any human being deserves. And
Or that his children brought him.
yeah, I mean, genuinely, I know that I'm my dad's number one, but she was. That was his baby. He loved her. That was my mom's baby. She loved her, and we have incredible memories to think back on around her. And one of my favorites, we moved to the place that we are currently in our home now, and we watched her for a weekend, and she because she's a high shed dog. She was a dog that shed all of the time. It didn't matter if it was cold or warm or hot or freezing. She was shedding. So Judy didn't want her upstairs. And so like she would commandeer the downstairs part of the house, and she was housebroken, well-trained, never got up on furniture or anything like that. But we came down one morning and she was just laying there, but she could hear us coming around the corner, and out of the top of the blanket, you just see this white and black like little tail, and I'll never forget that. And Oreo, I love you, baby, and if this world, if God is real, and if God is just, then there is a rainbow bridge that we will all be reunited with.
Aww.
So hopefully that day comes, and my dad and all of us can say hi to her again. So
yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully it's not too soon. We want you guys around here in this world.
Well, here's the thing, Sergio. With the way things are going, bud, you never know.
But I was just thinking about how we talked about last week. Just the importance of animals, and how they just how they're just other members of the family, and just how much joy and frustration, and when you get a huge vet bill, you're like, fuck this shit, I'm never getting another pet again. And then they just lay their head on you, and they're just like, you're so cute, like I would do anything for you.
I'd move mountains for you if I could.
But that's really hard, and I'm sorry to hear about, my condolences to the whole family.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's, I think I was talking to my dad about it, and he just said, I'm going to do my very best just to try to remember the best stuff, I don't think it happened in a way that he was incredibly prepared for, but, he's taken it well enough. I'm sure he's having some moments to himself and living through those, and same with my mom. My mom's a bit more emotionally open about that stuff. Not to say my dad's not emotionally open, but just to say, like, he definitely processes things differently than my mom, for sure. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just it is just what it is. But yeah.
So this is a question. Maybe this is a too soon question, but do you think your dad will ever get another pet?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing. Our dog, our little dog Ruby, he came over yesterday to let Ruggy and Ruby both out, and so I showed up. I came back from the office. He was here, and before I left, though, I checked the back door camera because I got pinged with a notification that something moved at the back door, and it was my dad, but he had his head like nuzzled up against her, like doing this. And it was just like, all right, like there's no way that this man isn't getting another pet in the home eventually, but I think it's going to take some time,
Yeah.
I think she was around for 12 or 14 years, and
good life.
An amazing life for any dog. And I think,
but it's never long enough. It's always, it's never long enough.
Yeah, man. It isn't. And, before I start crying, let's go and take a break. And,
bio break.
Yeah, real quick bio break where I go throw up. And But for real though, when we come back, Sergio, we're going to talk about how the LA Police Department went out of its way to declare war on its black citizens, and the subsequent uprising that amounted to over $1 billion worth of damage, left thousands injured, tore local and national communities apart, and also left over 50 people dead. Sergio, we are back. And for me, I want to start our story section, our first part of it, clarifying a couple of items here. And for me, I think it's really important to start off with the language we're going to be using. And I was watching a documentary about this, and I was looking at a documentary about uprisings and riots in general, right? And one of the commentators was saying, well, no, I think it's unfair to call these things riots. These are more like uprisings. And so for the duration of this episode, we're going to call it an uprising. And I agree with them, because a riot to me, it seems to indicate something more simple, right? Something less complex. And like one of the examples that was given was when the Philadelphia Eagles ripped, the stadium apart and destroyed the streets because their team won, or like when the University of Maryland flipped cars over and fucking like lit beds on fire in the middle of the streets. That's a riot. What we see is going to happen in LA is an uprising. It is about people who have been abused and neglected by the system, and then, had brutality carried out against them by the system. And this was their response. So I just wanted to clear that up a little bit.
Well, I will just say openly that I might slip and say riot every once in a while, even though I'm training myself to say uprising.
No, I appreciate
and
that.
That's not because I disagree or with anything like that. It's just the 92 riots, just like
the
LA riots is just that vocabulary that was ingrained during
for sure. And it's a hard thing to break, right? Like I still, when I was typing into my Google about it, I was like, I keep going with riot versus what I think it should be, which is an uprising. But it's just, for me at least, Sergio, it's just like that personal thing, that personal little tweak that I want to make in my own brain of going, no, a riot is something that doesn't have anything to do with social change or standing up for, people being murdered.
Yeah, and systematic racism and systematic killing, and all the great things that America is known for.
Right, and I think Dr. King said it best here.
I think we've got to see that a riot is the language of the unheard.
I want to bring up some unrelated facts here for us. Half of white medical trainees believe such myths as black people have thicker skin or less sensitive nerve endings than white people. 40% of first and second year medical students endorse the beliefs that black people's skin is thicker than white people's. Black people's nerve endings are less sensitive than white people's. Their blood coagulates more quickly than white people's, right? So completely unrelated. Don't remember that as the story goes on.
I actually have just some commentary to add to that. So when I was in my first year at my job, we had to go to an equity training, and we played the unequity Monopoly version or whatever, and so it had the cards kind of laid out and was just giving social commentary similar to the statistics that you were talking about.
Okay.
And one of the portions of it was we started talking about trips to the hospital and stuff like that. And it was pretty insane to hear, even currently, just how differently the African Americans were treated at hospitals.
Yep.
This one woman gave an example that she got in a car accident, that she didn't, and was pretty badly hurt, and was telling them, and they wouldn't give her any kind of medication. Other woman was talking about this, but they'd only give her one pill of whatever, because they were afraid that she was going to steal it or something. And I was over here, when I was like 19, I sprayed my thumb and I got a whole bottle of Vicodin. And to me it was just jaw dropping, clearly, because I'm not African American, just to hear all these people in the same building with me, their stories of how that they were just so mistreated by the medical profession that's supposed to do no harm.
Right. And I think, I'm thinking back on some personal experiences now with specifically with my grandmother around going to doctors, taking medication seriously. Like the mistrust in systems that are supposed to help us has in a lot of ways harmed us, because it turns out the systems are meant to hurt black and brown folks.
Absolutely. And then also just thinking about people, how people can be mistrustful of vaccines, the
That's right.
Tuskegee Airmen, experiments and the things that happened historically during that time.
Yeah.
Or I'll go to the doctor and they don't really do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I can never get an appointment. The doctor looks at me or, talks down to me, and
they don't listen to what I'm saying. They don't pay
Yes.
attention to what I'm telling my symptoms are.
They don't believe me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go ahead and make this conversation even more depressing by talking about the the events that built up to the LA uprising. So it's 1984, and LA is hosting the Summer Olympics. And most Olympic cities, Sergio, this is something that I think is pretty well known, but most Olympic cities and most Olympic countries end up, doing a lot of really extreme things to get local populations under control. They go out of their way to jail a lot of people.
Dude, it just, even with the Brazil one, it's called pacification.
Yep.
And basically built walls on freeways to not show where poor people live.
Yep.
Or people of color.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's it's not a uniquely American thing, but boy oh boy, they picked a great city to fucking carry this out in. So oh boy. In order to make LA more hospitable towards businesses and tourists alike, the LA Police Department began Operation Hammer, right? Under the Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums, or the CRASH, Specialized Gang Intelligence Unit of the LAPD. So they're gearing up to invade black neighborhoods, essentially, right? Not that the crime and drugs weren't put there by the Reagan administration. I'm like, yep. I think the CIA did that. So you create the problem so you can have the solution on hand, I think. This unit, this CRASH, unit inside the LAPD that was carrying out the Operation Hammer, started in 1979 and was and ended in 2000. But it was rolled out by LA Police Chief Daryl Gates. And again, this was all an attempt to crack down on the illicit drug trade and gang violence within LA. This is one of those periods of time. Again, we're talking about something that happened during the time that you and I were both alive in, right? And also a time and space where our parents were fully developed adults. So like this is pretty recent, and all things are considered here. Operation Hammer can be traced back to the 1984 Summer Olympics, which were held in Los Angeles, California. Under the supervision of LA Police Department Chief Daryl Francis Gates, the LAPD expanded gang sweeps during the Olympics, ostensibly to protect the tens of thousands of outsiders. As I mentioned earlier, tourist businesses, they don't like violence. They want everything to go well. And many of the events were scheduled for the LA Coliseum, located in South Central LA. The main areas of LAPD targeted were South Central and East LA. And the tactics used include mass arrests and detention of suspected gang members. So it's like stop and frisk on steroids, right? Mm-hmm. It's like what New York did during the 90s under Giuliani, like ratcheted up to 1 million.
So did you like during this time? This is just like the 90s and the LA uprisings just kind of reminds me a lot of nostalgia of like kind of 1990s coming to age
Mm,
dramas of the experience of African Americans. So were you ever into this genre? And even Latinos, because there's a lot of stuff with like the Chicanos
right.
and and uh and South Central and stuff like that. But do you have any favorites from the 90s? I know you're not movies, guys, so I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, Colors has got to be.
Hell
I
yeah.
mean, what an incredible movie. Like I say, incredible movie because I think it did as good a job as you could do to portray it from like a movie consuming audience, right? I don't think that you could really tell the whole story. You had to be able to like kind of take creative liberties and also try to do a good job of showing what was happening during that period of time.
Absolutely.
What about you?
For
Do you
me,
have a movie?
well, there's a couple, especially when we're talking about um, California. And Boys in the
I mean,
Hood,
yeah, yeah,
is one of the most iconic movies for me, kind of during that time.
no doubt.
Uh, Menace to Society was another one, which I loved. And I mean, there's just it's
Yeah.
a great decade for that.
Yeah, and especially that genre, really, and that's one of those things that I also there's part of it's like the fetishization. How what word am I using here?
Hmm.
Fetishization. Yeah, that word. Fetishizing police brutality. We love to see that kind of thing. We love to see the bad guy get caught, and if the bad guy is always shown as the black guy, I kind of like go, oof. I understand they're trying to show that the white police officers were the bad guy, but it just I don't know. There's a I don't know. It's like black exploitation, early like '70s Asian like kung fu movie kind of vibe for me sometimes. Like that genre, you know.
Yeah, well, or at least they're not doing like menstrual shows where the guys are just wearing like blackface
That's true. Fair, fair.
and doing it too. Hey, copper, you'll never get me.
Low bar to clear, but I like it. So after the Olympics comes to a close, Gates wants to keep the particular system of militarizing the city's police force, as well as continued and systematic harassment of the black community. From the RoyalGazette.com, police would break into homes, toss women, children, and the elderly to the floor, destroy the insides of their homes, traumatize these people on a weekly, monthly, and for some daily basis. Operation Hammer was both the wick, the fuel for the fires that would eventually spring forth. At the height of Operation Hammer in April 1988, 1,453 people were were arrested by 1,000 police officers in Los Angeles in one fucking weekend. That is insane.
But I also think of it too, and this is probably another cynical, but might make sense. How much money are they making by arresting that many people with just like processing them in jail? And it's almost a way for the city to just to really ramp up on revenue because they're going to pay fines, they're going to do whatever, and it's going to make the city of Los Angeles that much more money.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. So one of the documentaries I was watching, I think it was called "Fuck It, Let It Burn." I think that's the name of it. I forget the name. I think I sent it to you too. But in the documentary, they were saying there was a part. There is like LA Times footage of a police officer taunting black and brown participants in this uprising by saying thanks for the overtime. So they were getting paid through the nose to do all of this. So they were saying one of the black police officers in one of the neighborhoods was saying, I make $53,000 a year, but I make $6,400 in one single weekend in overtime alone. Keep riding. What do I care?
Yeah.
So, you know, There was a financial incentive here that we're not going to talk about as much, but it's definitely a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, and then I think one of the other things we've talked about as well is just the militarizing of the police and just how, police departments in, let's say not big cities like LA have, these armored cars and
Mm,
like all this high tech firepower for responses that don't need to be as militarized and have the response that the police are giving
yeah.
to neutralize it.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point, and one that if you're listening to this, pay attention because that might be a topic in a new series that we're doing on policing and the justice system in America. So a little sneak preview there, Sergio. I like that. It's
Oh
called
yeah.
tip in the hand. They do that in poker all the time. So there were citizens who weren't suspected of as gang members were also victims of this Operation Hammer. On August 1st, 1988, 88 LAPD officers raided two apartment buildings located on the corner of 39th and Dalton Avenues. When the police arrived, they searched for drugs and in the process caused massive property damage, including smashing furniture, punching holes in walls, and destroying family photos. The police spray painted graffiti messages such as LAPD rules and Rollin' 30 Harlem Crips die. These tactics were clearly designed to intimidate both drug members and apartment residents who were believed to be sheltering them and protecting their criminal activity. During the raid, many residents in the apartment building and neighborhood were rounded up, beaten, and humiliated. Despite these brutal tactics, the police raid netted fewer than 6 ounces of marijuana and less than 1 ounce of cocaine. You were talking about a little bit ago, and I wanted to come back to this. You were saying about the militarization of the police. And again, pay attention, folks, because, flag on the plate. We're going to be covering this in an upcoming series. But they were showing footage of this house apartment invasion by the LAPD. And they were showing how they entered into a couple of different homes where they had armored tanks and armored trucks with battering rams on the end of them, like you saw in Waco. And they were just bashing buildings and just going through people's windows, into their living rooms, into babies' bedrooms where there were cribs that were smashed against the wall because of police brutality and their activity within these apartment complexes. So this impacted people who weren't a part of this. And one of the things that I am starting to kind of get a better understanding for is the gang culture in South Central LA, where it was kind of designed, for at least my understanding so far, is gangs were kind of there to protect the neighborhood. And not to say what ends up coming out of that is a good thing, like the Bloods of the Crips and like all the endless murder and that is associated with those two major gangs. And you can ask about the motivations. We can ask about all sorts of, maybe conspiratorial thinking a little bit, because it can't be 100% proven. But, it's not like the CIA wasn't involved in pushing guns and crack into those neighborhoods. There are police officers who even said as much.
Well, and I was at a social work training, and we were talking about kind of differences, or not differences, but just barriers that a lot of families have to go through. And I was talking about a lot of the migrant families that come, or immigrant families that are here, that are working really hard and try not to get exploited. And this other guy that I worked with said, just well, it's also with like the Black community when people are selling drugs and stuff like that, they're trying to survive because there's not other options. And when you're the only one in your family that can make a little bit of something by that, these drug dealers are making tons and tons of money. A lot are just barely scraping by, and they're living in really dangerous situations all the time to try to get that little bit of whatever to support themselves or their family.
Yeah, and that's another thing that was brought up in a lot of these documentaries that I was looking at, and some of these newspaper clippings and definitely news footage, where they were talking about that exact same thing of, you took all these good union jobs that black people weren't even allowed to be a part of to begin with, but you took them out of our neighborhoods. You make it basically like, and we're going to talk about this here in a little bit, but you as a city design South Central LA in such a way that LA's black population doesn't have a whole lot, but South Central LA's Asian population has a lot, and they're able to move into these neighborhoods and start really kind of plucking up better real estate, better economic opportunity. And like those two worlds do collide in this story. That's the only reason why I'm bringing it up. I'm not saying that I believe these things to be true about, one ethnicity over another or whatever. But this is a very real part of the bristling that happens, that creates the heat, that creates the fire, that eventually becomes one of the most dangerous uprisings for capitalism that the world has ever seen. By the time Operation Hammer ends, Sergio, in 1990, it was estimated that over 50,000 people had been arrested in raids. The LAPD arrested far more young black men and women than even in 1965 Watts uprising. And we're not going to go into the Watts uprising, but it's basically every other racial uprising that's ever happened in this country's history. You beat that population down over and over and over and over again. You strip them of any voting. You strip them of any economic opportunity, educational opportunity. And then you ask, why are these people so fucking angry with this? Why don't they just be happy with what we're giving them? So
why don't they just go back to Africa?
Right. Why don't they just pull themselves up by the bootstraps? We gave them boots.
Mm-hmm.
Operation Hammer clearly employed racial profiling that targeted African American and Hispanic youth. The anger and frustration from that profiling, as well as the police assault of the motorist Rodney King, contributed to the uprising that happens in 1992. And that is going to bring us up to the LA uprising. So we're doing a quick abbreviated history here, but that kind of brings us up to this moment. And before we get into that, Sergio, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the assault of Rodney King. We are back again, Sid. We are back again. We are back again, Sid. I'm looking forward to the Arsenal this weekend, so I'm just getting my singing ready for this weekend. We've got who? Is it Leicester?
Dog, I don't even know, man. I just you just I was preparing myself mentally for all this reporting that we're going to be doing, but then after you said that Kai has gone down with a possible
Dog,
torn
talk to me
hamstring,
about it.
it's just like, good God. I asked you a question because I'm a newly anointed Arsenal fan, and
Proper.
so but just how it seems like this team has gone through more than its fair share of injuries this year. And
Yeah.
I was asking, is this normal for a season for, this many starters to go down? You're like, oh, it's not really a thing.
It's definitely been higher this season, I think. These guys are running all of the time. Like, granted, sure, they are like getting some of the best sports scientists in the world. You know what? Let's move on to the actual story. We'll come back to the Arsenal. Part 5 of this podcast.
Yes.
We do have Leicester this weekend, by the way. Okay, we're getting back to it now. So there were historical and contemporary reasons the uprising took place, right? So we talked about the situation leading up to it in terms of Operation Hammer, right? And now we're going to talk about a couple of things that happened that actually led to the riot. And let's start with the cold-blooded murder of a 15-year-old girl by the name of Latasha Harlins. She's shot in the back of the fucking head, Sergio. She goes in there to buy some orange juice. The shopkeeper pulls the gun out, fucking pulls the trigger and blows her brains out. So you can look at they have their surveillance footage. She had cash in her hand.
Pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it was murder. It was a murder. She she accuses the young girl of stealing. Like we said, pulls the gun out, boom, boom, goes the dynamite. And in the scene...
Steal though, Greg. What was she accused of stealing?
Orange juice.
Orange juice. So this young 15-year-old girl was shot in the back of the head for a 75-cent bottle of orange juice.
Yeah. Yeah. And in 1992, probably like what, 50? Like 50 cents? Like we're talking about pennies here. And, you know, and I bring up her name because, again, we talked to her a little bit earlier about that intersection between the Korean Asian population that moves into historically black neighborhoods and is running all the shops, running all of the businesses in that area primarily. And
well, that was considered Koreantown, right? And
okay. Maybe did I get that wrong? Okay. I thought they called it Koreatown because they moved in and started to dominate like blocks within it.
That's probably what it was.
Okay.
But it's
in the same year of November of that year, Soon Ja-do is convicted by a jury of her peers of the community that she was in of murder. And she should have been sentenced to 16 years. That's the maximum for what happened, what she was convicted of, right? But the judge places her on probation and fines her $500. $500 is what a young black woman's life is worth in 1992.
And like 4 years of probation or something like that, or 5 years of probation.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if you looked further into it, but she got a lot of grief too. Or not grief, I should say. She got a lot of well-received criticism that she gave a harsher sentence, like the following week, to an animal abuse case that had happened. That to a woman who was a child that was shot in the back of the head.
Yep. I think it was like a 30-day jail sentence. Yeah. A fucking 30-day jail sentence. And again, you heard a dog in my book. That's a life, maybe even death sentence, in my opinion. Shooting a young girl in the back of the head deserves at least 30 days in jail if you're going to send someone to prison for 30 days for, cruelty to an animal. Not saying that you don't deserve to go to jail for that, but just saying.
You know what, though? This will be a big philosophical discussion. Clearly, there's people that aren't safe and able to be in society, but just throwing people in jail is not really a way to help people, understand empathy and providing actual restitution. That's just not a financial one.
Yeah. No, and I don't think that you're wrong there. I think that you and I probably are very similar in our thinking on prisons and how the prison system works and how our justice system operates. So I think that you're right over the target. I think that's spot on. Let's talk about the sparking moment here. If the murder of Miss Harlan's was the dry tinder, the attempted murder by police against Rodney King acted as the spark. On the night of March 3rd, 1991, Mr. King was driving with two passengers through LA when he was spotted speeding by California Highway Patrol officers. After a high-speed chase, King eventually pulls over. What follows was a horrific display of police brutality that would shock the nation. And I think some folks would probably call it the earliest incidence of a viral video. This was, and I don't know about you and your family. I don't remember this existing in my family, my nuclear family at least. But like this was the time when families started getting like handheld recorders. Like no one had a cell phone. Like not everyone was doing this thing where like you're recording every little moment. You had to spend a grip to get one of these fucking things. And you were spending a lot of money on tapes too. Like this was an investment to do this in the really early days. Did you guys have one of these or these handheld recorders?
You didn't have a camcorder?
No, we did not have one there.
No,
Oh,
we didn't either. We just we had a couple friends that had them. We would like mess around on them a little bit,
oh,
but
really?
yeah, but not no. It was just too much, and my mom was like, why do we need a video ourselves? Who gives a shit?" She didn't say that, but
Sure,
she was just
sure.
like, we're not paying for that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's one of those things that like everyone had that one friend who was just so well off that they could
Yeah.
afford early editions of camcorders.
You know what, dog? I'm gonna say it's the opposite. I had poor friends
Did you really?
yeah, man. The families didn't really have a lot, but they bought a camcorder and
Oh,
just be maybe to overcompensate or what. But yeah,
Sergio, let's take a real quick break and we'll be right back. It could be considered one of the earliest forms of a viral video. The unarmed king was ordered out of his car. After initially being resisting arrest, he was subdued by, I say subdued, but he was fucking destroyed by
the
police.
shit kicked out of him
Yeah.
for however long.
Yeah, yeah. And despite King being on the ground and not posing a threat, King was brutally beaten by 4 LAPD officers: Stacy Kuhn, Lawrence Powell, Timothy Wind, and Theodore Bresino. And while other officers looked on. And that sounds kind of familiar to something that happened in this country not less than fucking a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the officers struck King with batons more than 50 times and kicked him repeatedly. The incident would have probably gone unnoticed, if not for the fact that someone had caught it on video camera, Mr. George Holliday. The footage, which by the way, the footage, did you see that it recently sold on like some like auction block for several $100,000, the camcorder that he used?
I mean, people have their strange things to collect.
Yeah.
Like it, cool, I guess. Good for good for that person.
Yeah. All right, cool, man. I mean, you've got some piece of history, but I mean,
Yeah.
everyone else knows why the camcorder? Why not the fucking original tape? I could understand that, but
So do you remember when you did you see that on the news or when you were like
yeah,
growing up?
I remember. So I don't remember like sitting down and considering it at all. I just remember it being like, why are they beating that man up?
Yeah. No, it was I remember asking, my parents about it, seeing it on I don't know if it was like I saw it on like a current affair, or, whatever, one of those
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Inside Edition type
Inside
deal.
Edition.
Well, I mean, I love current affair just because the triangle was so
Yeah.
so dramatic. But no, just seeing that, and then also seeing when I was at daycare, seeing the O.J. Simpson
Oh,
and the
yeah.
white Bronco being
Yeah.
chased by police, which was only a couple years after.
Yeah, I remember that
so-
too. I mean, I remember just hearing like "Go Juice Go, Go Juice Go." Like
Mhm.
looking back at it now, stop Juice, stop Juice, stop. But
Yeah. So I mean, it was just really it is awful footage. I mean, I'm thinking about it
Yeah.
right now, and just you see one of the police officers that the image sticks out is just like with double fisted, holding the baton and just whacking the shit out of him, and him just like trying to
yeah,
hold his hand
there was
up
there was an
protect
interview
himself.
he did where that was what it was a interview that he did where he was talking about the directions they were giving him while he was on the ground, and one of the directions was stop moving, and every time he would stop moving they would hit him and he would react to being hit, and so they keep saying stop moving, and they just kept beating him and beating him and beating him. The footage showing the officers mercilessly beating King on the ground was broadcast by television stations nationwide, sparking outrage and raising questions about police conduct and racial bias. King explains the the beating in his own words. One of the officers suddenly kicked me with his boot on the side of my face, smashing my jaw, King wrote. It felt like someone had taken a baseball bat to my head. Before I could even register the unbearable pain, one of the other officers slammed me in the lower leg with a baton. Moments later, the beating intensified. I was being hit with multiple baton blows to every part of my body, my knees, ankles, wrists, and head. The beatings continued to rain down on me. If he tried to run away, King explains, he felt he would be killed because it would have appeared as though he was running at an officer. If there was a time that night that I was going to give them an excuse to kill me, that was it. And when I was reading all of this and I'm using like basically current events to like just process this, we saw the same thing, but worse. So recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here, but like, how does this keep happening? You know? What is it about policing in this country that makes this happen so often?
Oh, I mean, I think one of the big, my opinion is that there's just not a lot of oversight, and again, police have unions and they have a hard job.
Yeah.
It's like, being
Mhm.
fair podcasters that we are. It's a job
No,
both you and I
no,
aren't doing, right?
couldn't do it.
Because you are seeing horrible things
Mhm.
all the time. You're seeing hard situations. It's got to be dead
Mhm.
people. You're seeing domestic abuse, people that are mentally ill. You're getting screamed at all
Mhm.
the time. But there's no accountability for when police
Yeah.
act like this. They should all be in jail for a long,
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah. And, I'm not, this isn't a spoiler alert here. They don't, but
They don't go to jail.
they just don't.
Nope.
So back to King's story here, though. He says that he didn't run, not because he didn't want to, but because his ankles seemed to be broken. He says the group continued to pummel him. I kept reminding myself to stay cool, but it was as if I was some damn human piñata and the cops were all in a rush to see who could smash me open first. As he laid there amid the violence, he had an out-of-body experience. I began to think about all the blacks down south who were slaves and had been beaten and lynched. I felt a strange power at that moment, as if their spirits were all coming together to help me get through this. And that is a fucking bit of imagery, man. Like, as he was taken to the hospital, Sergio, according to the grand jury transcript, nurses said LA police officers taunted King in the emergency room, remarking that we played a good game of hardball and we hit quite a few home runs tonight. After the incident, he spoke publicly about what happened, saying that he was scared for his life when officers went after him. If you and you have children, if your child was beaten nearly to fucking death and you heard that they played a good game of hardball and hit quite a few home runs, would you be satisfied with anything other than them going to prison? At the very least.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a little something. Of course, fuck yeah. If my
Let me be
kid
balanced here, Greg.
absolutely. If that happened to anybody I knew and cared about, uh, even if it wasn't somebody I cared about, when somebody is absolutely getting the shit kicked out of them, your job as police officers isn't to beat the living piss out of somebody. It's to, detain them and get them, where they need to do with the minimum amount of hurt that you can, put on somebody. That was just, it's one of the, now as an adult, just thinking about it, I haven't watched it. I was debating whether I was going to watch it again after we talked about this. It's a really horrifying thing to see somebody just get treated and hit like that. And that's just one instance that
Hmm.
was caught on camera. Those aren't all the people that have died by being beaten to death by
Yeah.
police officers. And there's been instances of that shit happening, in
Hmm.
Memphis, where the four, police officers beat the shit out of the was it I don't know, I forget
It's
the
all good.
guy's name, but which is terrible
No,
to
no, there've been
say.
so many of them. You can't remember all the school shootings either, can you? Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
it's just awful, and that's not the job of the police force to
And
do
it
that.
shouldn't, that shouldn't be anything expected of the police to carry out violence like that. Yeah.
No.
While he was receiving care after being beaten, King describes not wanting to live because he believed he would be permanently disfigured. But then he heard a voice. At first, he thought it was an angel, but he looked up to see an older black female cop. She explained to him that someone had a tape of the incident and they were going to see what happens and believe everything I said. King was taken to Pacifica Hospital after his arrest, where he was found to have suffered a fractured facial bone, a broken right ankle, multiple bruises and lacerations, 37 of them. Who's counting? Uh, and a negligence claim.
I'm sure he was.
Seriously. In a negligence claim filed with the city, King alleged that he suffered 11 skull fractures, permanent brain damage, broken bones and teeth, kidney failure, and emotional and physical trauma. Pacifica Hospital nurses reported that officers who accompanied King openly joked and bragged about the number of times they had hit King. So, Sergio, the trial comes, the trial venue is decided, and unlike the Korean shopkeeper, the jurisdiction for this case gets moved to a very friendly, very, very white, very police-friendly community. And, America going to America, baby. I just, fuck me.
Are you saying the
No,
system's
no,
rigged?
yeah. Fuck me. Are you kidding me? Yeah, a little bit.
Well, dude, and the thing is, like, I don't know, I can't remember what you wrote kind of in the future, but Rodney King did not live a happy life. He died not that long
Yeah.
ago either. He had a really, and I don't know how you can be
No.
normal again. Like you said that he had brain damage. I mean, just the
Mm-hmm.
PTSD from that kind of
Mm-hmm.
beating, and is awful. And being known for the person that got the shit kicked out of them by the
Yeah.
LAPD.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're not going to jump too far. We're not going to jump ahead because I left out like his, like the final years of his life. But I do remember reading that his daughter recently set up a foundation in his name, and like they're trying to help kids go to school and things like that. But it's like, my God, like to your point, like how do you live a good, happy life after that? I don't think you can. I don't see how you do. And I don't see how you don't pass down that experience to your children, and that those children don't pass that experience down to their children, and how that doesn't continue to stay within your family when that kind of thing happens.
Hmm.
Just get over it, though.
Yeah.
Stay humble.
Stay humble, bro.
I'd like to read the interview with the jurors who found the 4 white police officers innocent of the brutal beatings of Rodney King. The jurors who heard nearly 3 months of testimony in the Rodney King case say the infamous videotape provided only a partial picture of what happened on that night of March 3rd, 1991. Jurors interviewed yesterday, but who had refused to be identified, defended their decision to acquit the LA cops and place the blame of the incident squarely on King, who is black and was the one getting the shit kicked out of him, or what did he say? That being a pinata, waiting for someone to break him open.
well, if he didn't want this to happen, he shouldn't have tried to escape and run
Hmm.
away and elude us. And they were trying to say he was drunk
Yeah.
driving
So
too,
they were
right?
saying like they claimed that he was high on drugs and drunk and all this other stuff. You know, the toxicology report proved that he wasn't. And like, it's just white America doing white America shit here, I think, especially back then.
Hmm.
But time and time again, King controlled the action. One of the jurors who was quoted by NBC saying this, he could have stopped the action, one juror said. He could have stopped it. The juror noted that King had chased at high speeds by police for more than 8 miles before he was pulled over and didn't cooperate with officers who testified that they were afraid of King. He refused to get out of the car, another juror told the LA Times. His two companions got out of the car and complied with all the orders, and he just continued to fight. So the police department had no alternative. He was obviously a dangerous person. Mr. King was controlling the whole show with his actions. I feel like that's how the juror spoke, you know? Like a real fucking chode.
That's, I like that voice. I think that for all the chodes that we talk about, that should be
That
the
should be my
voice.
chode voice. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, boy. The jury even questioned the severity of King's beatings. The panel looked at the tape for more than 30 times at different speeds and heard conflicting interpretations of what was showed at a defense tactic that blunted its impact and created reasonable doubt. I have watched the fucking footage more than 30 times and I've come to one conclusion, Sergio. The police are innocent. The police were completely innocent.
What? Spoiler
Holy
alert.
shit, man. I mean, like you said earlier, you're not going to want to go back and watch that after this. It's a fucking
Mm-mm.
terrible, nightmarish thing to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, boy. A lot of those blows, when you watch them in slow motion, were not connecting, the first juror told ABC. Those batons are heavy, but when you looked at King's body 3 days after the incident, not that much damage was done because his black nerves weren't able to be penetrated because his skin was thicker.
Oh, that sounds a little familiar. Weren't you just talking about that a little like 30
Man,
ago?
I told you it's not a related fact.
Mm.
The mostly white middle class panel clearly embraced the defense portrayal by the cops as guardians of an endangered society. Defense lawyer Michael Stone, a former policeman, said in the closing arguments, these officers were, these defendants do not get paid to lose a street fight. They do not get paid to roll around in the dirt with the likes of Rodney, Glenn, King. That's not their job. That's not their duty. King, a convicted robber, was not called by either side as a witness, and at least one juror said it might have helped the prosecution's case if he had been called. A prosecutor said he didn't call King because King's memory wouldn't would have been clouded by the beating and his heavy drinking that night. Not guilty was the verdict. So the guy who's supposed to be there to act in your favor is not calling you up because he thinks that you're not going to remember what fucking happened. Even if you don't remember what happened, you can point to that videotape and go, that's me. And what they're doing is wrong. Like, what are we talking about here?
Might be one of the reasons why I can't remember what happened because they were, yeah,
Right.
batoning the shit out of my
Right.
head.
Oh, boy. So the jurors brushed aside charges that either they or the cops were guilty of racism. It had absolutely nothing to do with the incident. It has absolutely nothing to do with the incident, one juror told NBC. Had the men been white, had the men been Oriental descent, I'm reading a direct quote, please don't fucking cancel me for that one. Had he been anything and acted as Rodney King did, he would have been given the same treatment. I have no regrets about the verdict. Reminds you of the George Floyd conversations you heard a lot by white folks, by white brothers and sisters who were having about black bodies while being beaten by the police. If he had just complied, why didn't he follow instructions? Why didn't they just comply? They'd still be alive.
And would it, because Philando Castillo was told the cop that I have a gun in my pouch, it's right here, and he complied with everything that he said, and he still got shot 5 times in the chest and stomach in front of his
Yeah.
girlfriend and died.
Streamed on Facebook Live. Or when you're in your own fucking apartment and a white police officer gets afraid because they broke into your house and shoot you dead.
Mm-hmm. Breonna Taylor.
You're at home asleep. Minding your own fucking business.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't they just comply, though?
And
Why didn't they just comply?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, just kind of like thinking about this right now, and the whole Rodney King side. Not surprised, but just interested to hear your thoughts about like Reginald Denny, who was also assaulted during the '92 riots.
No, remind us of the story.
Excuse me, '92 '92
That's all good.
uprisings.
Remind us of the story.
So Reginald Denny is driving a truck driver driving through the uprising, and he gets pulled out of his truck and gets the shit beat out of him by people. And I think he got a brick smashed into the side of his head, but he had the famous line of "Can't we all just get along?" And I was just wondering, was that like the press's way of trying to say, oh, it's not just black people that are getting beat up, but we have this random white guy that was a victim. I mean, he was just doing his job, and he was caught up in a momentous occasion. And but I was just
that's a great point. I think you're absolutely right. I think if you show it happening to white folks, all of a sudden it becomes very real, right? Like the crack epidemic wasn't very real for white folks, but as soon as what is it, Xanax and like the pill oxycodone, the oxycodone thing happening, all of a sudden it's impacting. Yeah, it's impacting not all white neighborhoods, but it's impacting all across multitude of neighborhoods, especially in white neighborhoods, and all of a sudden that becomes very real because it's right in their face, and all of a sudden, yeah. So I agree with you. I think that's a really good point. Like that's maybe a way for the press to have turned white America even further against the black community in LA too, right? Like it acts in it cuts both ways.
I don't know. I just thinking out loud currently, just with that and just the way it could get spun, because I don't know if this is extremely, but Rodney King and Reginald Denny were both kind of doing press conferences together and trying to spread this message of black people and white people can get along.
And I don't think that's bad. I think it's a great like I think after the riot, the uprising, again, see, like I'm just you slip into it. But no, I think with the uprising, and you see at the very end of it, you've got this almost, all right, well, hey, look, we kind of got it out of our system a little bit. Also, the National Guard showed up, so we kind of have to behave now more than we did before because they'll fucking mow us down with guns. There was a National Guardsman who said in an interview that he never thought that he'd ever see that happen in his own neighborhood, which is incredible. That's an incredible quote to even think about. But yeah, I think it's when it becomes very real for the rest of the I forgot your question. Sorry.
No, just talking about just the portrayal from the media regarding this and trying to kind of soften it a little bit.
Yeah. And then in the whole, like, let's just all get along thing. And, and then you see it just continue to happen, in LA, there was
and then Michael Jackson creates a song. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. And then we all drink Coca-Cola and Pepsi.
Yeah. Everyone's looking at cute polar bears for Christmas and everything's all right again.
God, I love the polar bears. I'm not gonna lie, that was great.
It was great marketing. Like, you'll never forget it. Meanwhile, they'd rip your fucking head off if you put a Coca-Cola bottle near them. But
or they're dying on glaciers right now that are floating in the middle of the Arctic.
Yeah. That's we're doing great. We're doing great. We're doing great. We're doing great. Let's go ahead and finish up the story, though. I think, it goes without saying what comes next in the uprising is a absolute. It's like watching a war break out. It genuinely is. Like just for like the overhead footage. Like if you were to watch in your brain like the movie version of a war breaking out, it's what it looked like. Just pillows of smoke, just screaming into the sky, and fires breaking out all over the place, and people driving up and shooting at police officers, and the police officers responding in force, and a lot of it. And it looked like a war. And it's really, really fucking scary to think that, we had this happen with George Floyd. We had it happen in Baltimore, Freddie Gray. Like,
Dog, I was just gonna say, man, for me, we're gonna wrap into like final thoughts too. It just reminded because I was fucking downtown during the Freddie Gray murder. Yeah, I was right next to Camden Yards, and so I just remember just being so waking up in the middle of the night and just could just hear all the helicopters. You could smell smoke. Just being down in by the Ravens Walk, National Guard, with army stuff just all over the place, and all kind of wondering like, oh man, is this gonna seep into my neighborhood? Because it was only like 2 or 3 blocks away, kind of from where we were living, and it was kind of like, oh, well, hopefully it doesn't come into my neighborhood. I don't know what I would do. And but I just remember it being really some uneasy an uneasy night, and uh, you know, again, just recognizing that day of discomfort is nothing in comparison to the daily discomfort that, people of color, African Americans, Hispanics have to face on a daily basis when it comes to just trying to live life without being harassed or
as you said, we're kind of wrapping up with our final thoughts here. Um, you know, I just I think about George Floyd, and how he was just another reminder to America, white America, Black America, of what Black and brown bodies have been screaming into the ether from a very long time ago. And with the Olympics returning to the City of Angels, along with the country's further slide to the right on all things, but especially policing, could LA be a bellwether again for a whole new generation? It's not like they aren't killing people in the LAPD. I think in 2021 killed a man who was dealing with experiencing homelessness. After they stun gunned him, they in cold blood shot him and killed him right there on the street in open air while people were recording, screaming at him, "Stop doing that to him. He's complying. He's complying. He's on the ground. He's on the ground." But I guess I just want to leave it there of going, as our nation continues to go in the direction that it is, boy, oh boy, this could be a thing again. We could see another one of these happen. And I don't want that, but you can see it happening.
Absolutely, because it does happen. It happened in 1968 when Rodney King, when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. We had, all the uprisings throughout, the country. We had all the ones that have been going on with Michael Brown, Michael Floyd, and it's just going to continue to happen. And white America is going to continue to say, "Oh, it's all these people, quote unquote. They don't care about their community. They're just looters and they're just trying to steal stuff."
Right.
And they'll always pitch it in a way that, that people of color and poor people are just out there to steal stuff and take their wealth, and that we need to do
Yeah.
anything possible to kill the looters.
To protect property, instead of sitting back and going, okay, well, what let's talk about the narratives and the history that have gone into this one moment, and really examine the systems that we've built around this, and see if we can somehow satisfy it through the means of.
That sounds like critical race theory. We're not going to do that. No,
We're not
critical
doing
race
it
theory.
anymore. Not anymore, people. We canceled it. We canceled it. Cancel culture is real. It's really real.
It's woke. It's been way too woke.
It's way too woke. These people. I digress. Yeah. I think that's where we're going to wrap it up, man.
Sorry, dog. I fucked up your flow.
No, you're good. You're good. We're good. All things are well here. Listeners, thank you for listening to yet another episode of At the Extremes. If you enjoyed the episode, why don't you subscribe and share? It goes a long way. Reach out to us on Blue Sky at the Extremes Pod. Check the show notes, and until next time.
Just
a gangster stalking, living life like a firecracker, quick as my fuse. Been dead as a death.